The last time we reviewed the Ride1UP 700, we were so impressed by it that we called it one of the best commuter e-bikes of the year, and it was at an awesome price too. Now today, I have the ST model of the 700 here for review, and it sports a different commuter and cruiser blend of handling. Is the ST as good as the original high step that we liked so much? Stay tuned to find out. Okay, so make sure you're a subscriber to EBR as we have more videos coming out all the time, and YouTube is always the first place to hear about our e-bike giveaways as well, so make sure to hit that notification bell so you don't miss out. Now, if you've ever heard the saying, you get what you pay for, just know that with Ride1UP, you typically get a little bit more than what you pay for. Whenever we get a bike of theirs in for review and we compare them spec for spec to similar bikes, you usually can get the Ride1UP version for $100 or $200 less, which makes them a really appealing option. Now, that can lead to a trade-off or two, but they seem to do a good job of identifying the trade-off that does not matter very much, and that way they can focus on delivering a nice ride at an even nicer price. That's one of the key takeaways on the 700 ST here. It is a great commuter that comes lock, stock, and barrel with what you need out of the box. This particular step-through frame is sized a little on the smaller side, and it has a cruiser handlebar giving it a more relaxed feel, but it can absolutely take off like a rocket in higher pedal assistance to make for a very thrilling ride too. The 750-watt Bafang motor in particular stands out as what makes this bike feel like a great ride. It is helpful in lower PAS, making it feel approachable for a lot of riders, while maxing out the PAS will lead to near effortless Class 3 28 mile/hour speeds. And it is no slouch on hills either. So the motor was the standout feature of this bike, but so too is just the general value you get for the whole enchilada. So let's take a look at all the different features that come on the 700 ST. You get a good sized 720 watt-hour battery with Samsung cells here in the down tube of the frame. The drivetrain on the bike is the reliable Shimano Acera 8-speed. It features a 45-tooth chainring up front with an 11 to 30-tooth cassette here in the rear. Now, our particular bike has the Schwalbe Supermoto X tires. They're 27.5 by 2.4 inches. It's a nice set of tires for a dedicated commuter. Ride1UP's website does state that you might get a comparable set of WTB Groove E tires though, depending on the frame and color of bike that you choose. Up front, there is a spring fork for keeping the ride more comfortable. It's a Mozo fork with 100 millimeters of travel. The brakes are Tektro dual piston hydraulics with 180 millimeter rotors. And moving up to the cockpit, Ride1UP keeps things fairly clean and simple on all of their bikes. You have faux leather grips on either side, the brake levers, a throttle on the left-hand side, rapid fire shifters on the right, and then you have this small but effective color display. I really like that it shows the wattage output from the motor at any given time, but I don't love the bar-based readout as I think they're just not quite as helpful as percentage-based ones in general. So remember when I said this bike comes fully stocked? Rounding out your commuter needs are the included fenders, headlight and tail light, and then a rack that can hold 50 pounds, and they even included a bungee here for you as well. Now, as the step-through version of the bike, it has a 17-inch standover height, and it can support riders from 5 feet up to 6'2", and then carry a payload of 300 pounds. Now, I want to talk a little bit about this matte white frame here, as it is one of the newer options of colors that you can choose. Personally, I think it looks awesome, but they also have a pretty good looking blue and gray that you can pick as well. Ride1UP has a subtle look to all of their frames and their use of colors, but it is distinguishable. It finds a way to stand out. I think it's just a sharp look in general. Now that covers all of the basics here, and for any other smaller details, make sure to check those out back at the EBR website from the link below. But now let's move on to talk about how this bike performed in all of our testing. The 700 ST comes with one of the more popular brake setups on e-bikes. It has a pair of Tektro dual piston hydraulic disc brakes on 180 millimeter rotors. So for our first performance test, we took the 700 up to 20 miles per hour before braking and measuring the distance it took to stop. After running the test a few times, we had a solid 23-foot average. Now, comparing this one to some similar e-bikes that we've tested over the last couple of years, it's a hair slower than our current running average of 22 feet 4 inches, but still within the realms of what we would consider to be a safe result. I think the final score is good, and I like that it uses Tektro brakes because those are really easy to find replacements for and have serviced when the time comes for it. All right, so now let me take you out to our test course to see how the 700 did in our speed tests. All right, so here's the speed test for the Ride1UP 700 ST. Right now I'm pedaling around in 5th gear, going about 11.4 miles per hour. Let's see what happens when we kick that motor on. All right, so we got the motor on and it's working. I appreciate the Ride1UP. It has a power meter here, so it's actually telling me how many watts it was spitting out. Pushed me about, bouncing between anywhere from 17 to 70, helping me go just a little bit faster, up to 12.9 miles per hour. See what happens when we go to PAS2. It starts kicking in a little bit. You have to move the pedals a few times until it gives you more wattage, it looks like. Now it's up to 140 watts. It's a good bit of assist too. It's got me going about 15.3, 15.4 miles per hour. Actually just kind of steadily climbing. It's still holding that wattage at about 157, so it's kind of helping push me along. Change the gear, see if that helps. Yeah, up to about 15.8 miles per hour. Kicking the PAS3. Jumps the wattage up significantly, up to 364 watts, making it much easier to pedal. Go ahead and change gears. We're in 7th gear now. We're about 19.5 miles per hour. Seems to be the limit right here. Change that to PAS4. It's dishing out a lot more power, up to 580 watts. Able to move into the 8th and final gear. And it's making pretty light work, going up to 24.2 miles per hour. Yeah, pretty easily. This is right around where I'm starting to feel some ghost pedaling on that drivetrain. We'll slow down a little bit on this corner. And then we're now in PAS5. Let's see how it goes. And yeah, plenty of motor power. It's making really light work of this. Able to go pretty quickly here, upwards of 26 miles per hour. Gonna slow down a little bit as we pass the runner on your left. And pick right back up where we left off. Like I said, past 24, 25 miles per hour. It's pretty ghost pedally, moving my legs fast just to try to keep up. But it's gonna top off at about 28.1 miles per hour. So I can definitely hit those class 3 speeds. All right, doing the throttle test on the Ride1UP 700 ST series, and ready, set, go. And there. So it hits 20 miles per hour, then kind of keeps going a little bit. Overall, decent acceleration. Okay, so really quickly, let's recap the results, and that way we can move on to the analysis. So with no motor help, this bike pedals pretty fine, around 11 miles per hour. Turning on the motor bumps you up subtly to 13 miles per hour. PAS2 and 3 see measured jumps to 16 and 19.5 miles per hour. Then the final 2 remaining levels is where the bike really starts to move, going 23.5 and 28 miles per hour respectively. Here's a few takeaways from my time on this test. I thought the bike does a great job of giving you control over the type of ride you want to have. I like that PAS 1 through 3 dishes out helpful assistance beyond what you could pedal on your own, while still staying under a more controllable 20 miles per hour. PAS 4 and 5 will be great for people wanting to keep up with traffic on public roads, as this bike can really move. Now for me, as a 230-pound rider, I often see bikes fail to get me up to their top speeds, but this bike was able to do it. So kudos to the bike for juicing somebody on the larger side up to the top speed of 28 miles per hour. Now, the ghost pedaling I encountered happened around 24 miles per hour, but it wasn't much of a surprise. A lot of bikes with class 3 speeds hit this point in the early to mid 20 mile per hour range. So Ride1UP could possibly eliminate that with a move to a larger chainring. Something like a 52 tooth should get the job done. Overall though, I think speed is something this bike does really well, and not only can it get going fast, but it handles very good at those speeds as well. So if you're looking to buy this bike, you're likely wondering how far you can go on it, which is why we tested the range in 2 different tests to find out. Now again, this bike's 720 watt-hour battery is very close to the 750 watt nominal motor rating. A 1-to-1 ratio of watts to watt hours is what we typically hope for on e-bikes, and this pairing comes very close to that. In our first test, we rode the bike in its max PAS and we got a range of 25 miles at a blazing fast road pace of 25.3 miles per hour. When we ran the test again a second time on PAS 1, it went nearly 45 miles at a speed of 14.6 miles per hour. Now, Ride1UP claims you can go between 30 and 50 miles, so we fell just slightly short of that, but it's still a fairly respectable range in the grand scheme of things. The 25 miles of the max test in particular was just very impressive. The bike achieved that in about an hour of ride time. We've seen a lot of other commuters get similar mileage or even maybe a little bit better, but at a much slower pace. So if a 20-mile round trip is what you need from your commuter, you can cover that distance at a mellow cruise or a faster sprint with no problem at all. Okay, let's take a look at what the 700 ST can do for a rider when tackling a challenging hill. In order to do that, Justin took this bike out to our local Hellhole Trail to see how it could do going up a 1/3 of a mile hill that averages a 12% grade. I'll kick it over to Justin where you can see and hear how it performs.
All right, so here we are on the Ride1UP 700 series step through, which is a 750 watt rear hub motor, listed at 60 Newton meters of torque. And we'll see how it does. Right now it's showing that it's putting out just under 900 watts of power, going about 8 miles per hour through this super steep section, 7 miles per hour, down to 6. But definitely feels like it's going to make it up this hill. Not blazing fast speed, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. So as I go through this next section, listen to the motor, you'll kind of see how the sound that it makes as it goes through this next kind of punchy steep climb section, and then after. So I'll stop talking so you can hear that. So yeah, as you can hear kind of through the steeper section, it's like a low grunt. You can kind of hear from the motor. Then as you pick up speed, you hear a little bit more of that whine. But I would wager that it's a little bit on the less noisy side of rear hub motors. And so from a throttle standpoint, yeah, I think this shows that if you just want to relax, sit back and let the motor do it, it'll do it for you. Interested to see the results on the 700 series step through. Okay, now we're on the Ride1UP 700 series pedal test. We're going to see how that 750 watt rear hub motor goes. And peaking looks like just around 900 watts of power through this section. About 12 miles an hour, 11, and about 10. I will say I'm not having to push hardly at all. I can push more if I want, but I'm trying not to, so it's really not bad. So we got down just high 9s right there in this next section. Again, I'll let you listen to the motor so you can see kind of how that sounds. Yeah, kind of about the same sound it had when I was on throttle only. I will say that it shifts really nicely. Something that we see with a lot of rear hub motors. A little easier to shift on hills than mid drives, but it is very smooth shifting. The motor has really nice engagement and feels powerful, not overpowered, but definitely very nice and smooth climbing up a hill.
So Justin's throttle result was 1 minute and 48 seconds with an average speed of 10 miles per hour. The max PAS result was 1 minute 21 seconds with a 13.4 mile per hour average. Now both results here are pretty solid. They are not trailblazing by any means, but they are still pretty good results. The 750 watt Bafang motor produces 60 Newton meters of torque, and as you saw, it can definitely help you take on just about any hill, or it can do the work for you with the throttle while you rest up. Now I want to head out just one more time to discuss a few things about how it is to ride the 700 ST. So in terms of feel on the 700 series, I think it's actually a pretty comfortable bike and it's got a lot of nice things going for it. So, I mean, it's a commuter style e-bike, so, but this one actually has a couple of differences from the XR. This one has a more cruiser style handlebar, and it's on this adjustable stem here, so you can actually dial that in on the reach and, you know, find something that works well for your height. Ride1UP says it works for riders from 5 foot up to 6'2", so at 6'1", I'm on the taller end of the spectrum. I think it's actually fairly comfortable. You know, it's a little bit tight, but I can definitely ride this and be all right. So, you know, I might be better off on the XR. That is on my wish list from Ride1UP, would be to have multiple sizes of frame in the step through. Because actually on a commuter, if given the choice between a high step and a step through, I choose the step through almost every time. So let's talk a little bit more about what they give you on this. So the fork up front is a 100mm fork from Mozo. It felt a little bit stiff out of the box, but I was able to adjust it just enough to give me the type of squish that I like when I'm riding. And then this is rolling on the Schwalbe Supermoto X tires. They're 27.5 by 2.4 inches. This is one of my favorite commuter tires. It rolls pretty well. It, you know, handles diving into turns nicely, and then I've ridden enough of them in the rain to know that it actually performs decently even in wet conditions. So that's pretty nice. Last but not least, let's just talk about the motor engagement a little bit one more time. So I'm, you know, soft pedaling right now at PAS2, and I think that the bike does a good job on its cadence sensor of knowing when to go and when to stop. So you see I'll stop pedaling, motor noise cuts out almost instantly, and then as I re-engage my legs, within about half a pedal stroke it kicks on. The one thing that's a little bit different about the 700 compared to some other e-bikes, it has a little bit of a delay. So as I click up into PAS4, I get almost 3 pedal strokes in before it delivers the higher acceleration of those levels, and the same thing as I back down. It's got this little wattage readout, so you can actually kind of track it, and yeah, sure enough, each time it's about 3 pedal strokes. But again, the motor like knows to stay engaged, so I almost wonder if it's a safety feature. It's something I'll have to get in touch with folks at Ride1UP and ask them about. But I think that the acceleration profile on this bike is on the speedier end of the spectrum. It's speedy without being too fast. If you keep things in PAS 1 or 2, it's very manageable for even a novice or like a newbie rider, you know, trying an e-bike for the first time. And then of course, as you get more comfortable with speed, you know, it's a bike that handles its class 3 speeds really well at the top end. It's a bike with a lot of fun. So overall, I think the ride quality is set up for success here on the 700. So overall, this is just a solidly comfortable bike. I wish it did have 2 sizes for taller riders like me who enjoy step throughs to feel like the bike just fits a little bit better. But the adjustable stem does work as a bit of a compromise, as it's helpful to tailor the ride a little bit more to your liking. The fork keeps riders happy if you encounter a lot of bumps, and it can be locked out to take advantage of the smoother tire tread for better rolling efficiency. I really like how quickly the cadence sensor responds on this bike. It makes it really easy to get going from a dead stop. Now, this ST model does have a few differences from the high step version of the 700. Not only is it easier to get on and on without that top tube, but it has a different handlebar as well. This bike has more of a city cruiser one with more of a sweep back towards the rider, while the XR version has a riser bar with more of a flat line. The handlebar does change up the handling characteristics just a bit. One isn't really better than the other. It'll largely come down to your preference. But I think those who like a more relaxed feel in general will gravitate to what the ST here has to offer in terms of ride feel. So the Ride1UP 700 ST has something for everybody in a pretty affordable package. This bike can give you a nice little boost while out riding around, or it can take you where you're going very quickly as a fast riding supercommuter. It's capable of getting you to work and back thanks to the racks, lights, and fenders, but you can just as easily make it your leisure ride thanks to the comfortable feel and then just slowing down a bit to enjoy where you're going. And again, finding a capable Class 3 commuter at this price is just not something you can find every day. I also feel like this is a pretty good looking bike. The 700 has a more subtle look to it that still feels distinguishable. How a bike looks is always going to be a subjective factor that is more or less important for certain riders, but I think this bike checks the aesthetic box. At the current price of this bike, there is not much that I can really fault it for. I would say though that there is one thing I'd like to change and one thing just to be aware of if you go to purchase this. Now, sizing runs a little bit small and there's only one step through frame to choose from. I feel like I could ride it every day, but I would probably prefer another larger frame, speaking as a 6'1" rider. And one thing that we noted as we put the 700 together was that it had more steps in the assembly process than most DTC bikes. It wasn't any more difficult than the others, it just took a little bit longer. Luckily, Ride1UP has plenty of resources for helping you get it assembled, and then once you have it put together, you'll never have to worry about it again. As I mentioned at the beginning, you often get what you pay for, but with the 700 and how it performed for us and just the good overall ride feel, it feels like you get what you pay for and then some. As always, thank you so much for watching. For the current price of this bike, check the video description for a link down below, and if you do click on that link and go to buy this bike, it will help support us here at EBR. If you aren't yet, become a subscriber to the EBR channel and stay up to date with bike giveaways by clicking on that notification bell. Last but not least, leave us a comment if there's anything that we didn't cover here that you want to know about. I'm Griffin with Electric Bike Report, and I'll see you out on the next review.